So I come up here with a couple challenges. The challenge that I have to get you all ready to party after this, because I'm your last person, so stay awake. But also, the biggest challenge of them all is following 9 other people that I'm just in awe up here, crying, and I forgot everything that I was going to say. So that's where I am. But it's crazy to be surrounded by these people, and I'm just so thankful that I'm amongst such an amazing group. And as you heard, I've become passionate about speaking, and I was just saying that, I never get nervous speaking. But now here I'm shaking and nervous because I'm surrounded by so many incredible people, and I am frankly intimidated by them all. And it's amazing to have that kind of inspiration around me. So a question that I get a lot of the time is, why hospice? Why did you get involved with hospice patients? And that was kind of by chance, and it was because actually my dad worked next to a hospice, and my sister, she's my older sister, and she started volunteering because she was in high school and she needed to get those volunteer hours. And of course, being the younger sister, I did everything that she did, and I was always following her around, much to her dismay. So I went along at age 12, and I started volunteering in the hospice and started meeting these angels that are hospice staff. And if any of you know any people that work in hospice, they are truly angels. And I began singing at memorial services. They discovered I could sing, and no, don't ask me, I can't sing anymore. I started singing at memorial services for the families of these patients who had passed away. And I saw the impact that a simple song could have on their lives. And I decided that I wanted to do more for the patients while they were still alive. And so I had the idea that you heard after seeing Patch Adams. And those of you who have seen that movie, you might remember that scene with Patch. He filled a pool full of spaghetti, cooked spaghetti, for this old woman who had stopped eating, but she said that her dream was to swim in a pool of spaghetti. The weirdest thing ever, but she was the happiest person to get to swim in that spaghetti. And so I saw an opportunity there to do that for the hospice patients in my community, to grant their final dream, as weird as it may be. And no, we haven't had any requests for a pool of spaghetti, unfortunately. So I started seeking out these hospice patients. I went to the hospice staff and told them about my idea. And I'll tell you a quick story about one of the first ones the first couple that I granted, because they had a huge impact on me in my life. The first dream that I granted was for a man named Bernie, and he was diagnosed with ALS. And so he lost a lot of mobility. He couldn't even speak anymore. But of course, his brain is fully there. And he had sailed his whole life. He was always out on the water, and he was always submarining, and he was obsessed with the ocean. But unfortunately, due to his condition, he hadn't been able to get out there very often anymore. And his wife told me that, don't be offended, but he doesn't really smile. He can't really move his face muscles very much. He doesn't really appear happy. But I assure you that he is. And so we went out there for 2 hours. His family and friends flew in for the event, and we went out of Dana Point Harbor in Orange County and took him out on a sailboat ride. And I never knew a Bernie that didn't smile, because that whole day he had a smile on his face. And after that dream had a huge impact on me, because when Bernie passed away a few months later, his family invited me back on that same sailboat to scatter his ashes out on the sea. And so going through that experience, I was hooked. I knew that I wanted to do this forever. I wanted to keep granting these dreams. And you might have seen a picture of me sitting on the floor holding photos, watching a little slideshow with an older woman in her room. And that's a story about Pat, who, when I first met her, Pat was living in a nursing home, and she told me that her dream was to die and go to heaven to join her husband. And I told her, Pat, I can't do that for you, unfortunately, not in this state. And I asked her, is there something else I can do for you? Is there something else you're very passionate about? And she told me, well, Caitlin, I've traveled my whole life. And she had boxes and boxes of slides. And I'm like, what are slides? I don't really understand. She's like, okay. So she pulls out her little slide, I don't even know what you call them. She pulls it out. And we start going through all of the pictures of her travels to China. And that was her favorite place to go. She had boxes of pictures when she was in China. And Pat, she had family, but they didn't really visit her very often. She had friends, but they didn't really care to listen to her hours of stories. So I would go there every week and sit with Pat on the floor and go through her slideshow. And I decided that, Pat, we should share your stories with your friends and your family. We should put on a big slideshow, something like this, a room like this, where I could go through and tell her stories as she was short on breath. So she told me her stories, and then I would tell them to the group. And so we had it all prepared, we had the date set, and unfortunately, the day that the slideshow was scheduled for, Pat fell into a coma. She was definitely on her way out. And I went in to visit her, and her family was surrounding her bed. And they all said, Caitlin, she's out. We haven't been able to get a response from her. So I go up to her, I hold her hand, and I said, hey, Pat, how are you? Dumb question. And she goes, Caitlin, I'm fine. How are you? Promptly back to sleep. Why are you asking me how I am, Pat? The fact that you just spoke to me is pretty amazing. And her family was shocked. And they were like, she didn't wake up for us. And so I get to see Pat, and she died that day. But I felt comfort knowing that she did get her dream, after all. And she was happy in heaven with her husband. So experiences like that taught me so much. And in high school, when a lot of people are very focused on themselves and what you're wearing that day, what you're going to say to your crush, I found that I got a whole new appreciation for life and for the people, the family, friends around me. And I thought that maybe I could bring that to other people of my age. So I started to spread DreamCatchers, and it really caught on, and now it's across the country. And now I find a passion in connecting generations, because I see that there's kind of a hole in our society in America where we don't really connect young people to old people as often as we should. And that's my story. And I was just thinking as I was sitting there listening to everyone that if someone came in here not knowing anything about our country, not knowing anything about the state of the world right now, you would think we're in a pretty good place. We have a great future ahead of us. And I hope that we can all leave with that mindset, that no, our world is not ending tomorrow, as many people say it might be. But there actually is hope, because there are so many amazing people here doing incredible things in so many segments of our world, and it's just unbelievable to me that I'm filling maybe a tiny hole over here, but we have 9 other holes that are being filled at the same time. So I want to thank you so much for this honor, and I want to make a special shout out to Neil Haynes, who nominated me for this award, not even knowing who I was. We only had a few phone calls, and we had never met before. For Jay and Stephanie Johnson, who basically took me in. They're like my JC parents. And I love them to death. And of course, thank you to my family. My sister, who let me tag along at a young age, taught me to read at age 3. And my parents, who've supported me through everything, and they came all the way out here. They're retired, so they were like, sure, we'll go anywhere. And my boyfriend, Chris, he's dealt with me breaking down several days.